RIMS is global. Discover why 10,000 of your peers in more than 60 countries are part of the world's largest risk management community. Visit rims.org/membership to find the best membership for you and your organization. Coming to you from RIMS headquarters in New York, this is RIMScast, the official podcast of the Risk and Insurance Management Society. I am Justin Smulison, business content manager here at RIMS, and your proud RIMScast host. This is episode 378. Our guest is RIMS General Counsel and VP of External Affairs, Mark Prysock. He's here to tell us what's going on with RIMS advocacy efforts and the top items on our legislative agenda in 2026 and possibly beyond. But first, let's talk about virtual workshops, starting with the RIMS CRMP. On March 10th and 11th, we have a two-day course led by our friend John Button for the RIMS CRMP prep exam. And on March 17th and 18th, RIMS will align with a firm for a two-day RIMS CRMP Fed exam prep course. On to virtual workshops. On March 4th and 5th, we have a virtual workshop facilitating risk-based decision-making with our good friend Joe Milan. On April 15th, we have a virtual workshop covering emerging risks, and that will be led by our good friend Joseph Mayo. Register today and strengthen your risk knowledge. RIMS members always enjoy deep discounts on the virtual workshops. And we've got RIMS webinars coming up. On March 6th, RIMS presents High Stakes and Hard Hats, where we will dive deep into the careers of women leaders in construction risk. We'll be joined by a chief risk officer, an underwriter, and a broker who will explore their career paths, risk and safety philosophies, and lend some insight as to why this is the time for the next generation of leaders to rise up. And on March 12th, our good friends from Global Risk Consultants return. Their session is Don't Waste the Soft Market, Where to Reinvest Insurance Savings Before the Window Closes. Register for these and other webinars by visiting rims.org/webinars and the links on this episode's show notes. I've got just a couple of more quick announcements, folks. The RIMS 2025 Compensation Survey is now available through the link on this episode's show notes. The survey incorporates data from 867 U.S. and 201 Canadian risk professionals. Download today and see how you measure up to your peers. And guess what, folks? RIMScast has its very first spinoff. It is called RIMScast Canada, and it is hosted by RIMS Canada Conference Committee Chair Aaron Lukoni. I'm her side man there. I'm the Ed McMahon to her Johnny Carson. It's a video podcast, and you can check it out at rims.org/Canada. This is a monthly series, and we are so stoked to share it with you. And on with the show. Our guest today is Mark Prysock, the General Counsel and Vice President of External Affairs here at RIMS. It is always wonderful to have him on the show. He's here to remind us of the RIMS legislative priorities in 2026, how they will be addressed during the RIMS Legislative Summit, March 18th and 19th in Washington, D.C., and who qualifies to attend, and what else we can expect in the way of public policies that RIMS would like to prevent and those we support. There are lots of links on this episode's notes as well. You can always visit rims.org/advocacy as well. Let's learn about the policies that are changing the risk landscape. Mark Prysock, welcome back to RIMScast. And we are joined once again by my friend Mark Prysock. Mark, welcome back to RIMScast.
It's a pleasure to be back. Thank you for having me.
How's your dressing room? We have a dressing room for Mark Prysock, for Morgan O'Rourke, and Hillary Tuttle.
It's wonderful. You guys have gone out of your way to make me feel at home. Greatly appreciated.
Well, Mark, it's a new year. It's still a new year, right? February is still a new year, right?
Still a new year, my friend. Yes, it is.
Right. Excellent. And so it's 2026. So much to discuss. Could you do us a favor and remind us of the top RIMS priorities for 2026?
Of course. So our priorities at this point are, one of them is third-party litigation funding. That's an issue that has really been growing on Capitol Hill, both the House and the Senate. Republicans and Democrats all concerned about it. For those that don't know what third-party litigation funding is, it's essentially civil litigation that is backed or supported by
an outside party?
Third party, exactly. Third parties like hedge funds, other investment groups who see investing in a lawsuit as a potential, well, as a solid investment vehicle, if you will.
And these outside parties could even be sort of like a a front for a government entity, right?
Well, they could. I mean, they're some of these investment vehicles are in Russia, China, the Middle East. So definitely foreign investment in domestic litigation is of great concern, just from a national security perspective. If a foreign firm wants to invest and support a lawsuit against a defense manufacturer, then that investor is going to have access, for example, to everything that comes out in discovery. So there's a lot of information that can be gleaned through civil litigation. So that is absolutely a concern from a national security perspective. And that's one of the things that we are hoping Congress will address.
Excellent. So yes, we had a couple of webinars about TPLF in 2025. They were my favorite ones of the year.
Oh,
partially, it supplemented our dialogues, but the people who were the panelists on those webinars were incredibly knowledgeable and incredibly passionate about prevention. So, or ways to spot it and what to do about it. So I think this is a topic that's not going away anytime soon.
It is not going away anytime soon. I think that, we've established that there is a strong link between these third-party litigation funding agreements and nuclear verdicts. So those verdicts that come back for substantial amounts of money. And I mean, there's just a real risk, I think, from a commercial insurance buyer's perspective, that if you're in a certain industry that is subject to these sort of third-party litigation funding arrangements, the insurance that covers you for these types of lawsuits could dry up or become substantially more expensive. So I think from a commercial insurance buyer's perspective, these types of funding arrangements could be extremely problematic down the road.
All right, excellent. Now, moving right along, we've got the Terrorism Risk Insurance Act, TRIA. That's been on our agenda for a while, right? And this is the sort of thing that gets reauthorized every X amount of years?
That's correct. So Congress is now starting to consider TRIA reauthorization. Again, I think there's a lot of bipartisan support for it. It's already been voted out of the House Financial Services Committee, so the full House will be voting on that before too long. This is an issue that may actually get wrapped before the legislative summit.
Wow.
But the idea is that the reauthorization would extend through the year 2034, I believe. So there are a few tweaks that they've been talking about in the bill that we're not terribly fond of, but hopefully those can be minimized. But overall, I think we definitely support a long-term reauthorization of the program.
Wow, because the legislative summit, which is March 18th and 19th, is going to be about a month from the airing of this episode. So you're saying there's a chance that might be taken care of or voted in the House?
There's a good chance. I mean, it was voted out of the House Financial Services Committee by a vote of 52-1, I believe. So that's about as good an example as you can get of strong bipartisan support for something. So assuming that there's the same level of bipartisan support in the Senate, this is definitely a bill that could move quickly.
Terrific. Okay. And then how long generally would it take for the Senate to vote on it?
It really depends. It's just something that they would need to get on their calendar. That would probably go through, or there might be discussion at the committee level before it goes to the Senate floor for a vote. But this could be something that the Senate agrees is a priority, should be taken up relatively quickly.
Right.
And again, assuming there's that same overwhelming bipartisan support for extending the program for another 7 years with minimal changes, I think this could go through fairly quickly.
The appetite is there.
The appetite is most definitely there, my friend. Yes.
All right. Excellent. And so let's also talk about what's going on with levying a tax on nonprofits' net earnings. That's something that came up about at least a year ago, I think. And I know You've been working really hard to minimize this levied tax. So tell us about it.
Well, this was an issue that really surfaced, I want to say, a year and a half to 2 years ago.
Okay.
And essentially I would say that there's a philosophical reason for supporting it and a financial reason for supporting the idea of levying a tax on nonprofits. Philosophically, I think there are a lot of members who believe that nonprofits operate in many ways like for-profits do, but they don't have the corresponding tax burden.
And when you say members, you mean members of the U.S. Congress?
Sorry, members of the U.S. Congress.
Yeah,
that's right.
not members of RIMS. Okay.
No, not members of RIMS. No, policymakers in Washington on both sides of the aisle. Not a lot, but there are definitely some who believe that nonprofits in general compete really against for-profits, but again, don't have the corresponding tax burden, so they have an advantage. And, in some cases that could be true. I mean, there are, outliers, incredibly large nonprofit organizations that might be able to do that. But overwhelmingly, in the 501c6 community, there are, organizations that are essentially like RIMS. And the idea that we are going up and competing against, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies in that same space and perhaps stealing business from them because we have some sort of built-in tax advantage, I don't think that really flies. But I think, again, philosophically, there is that sort of viewpoint. And then financially, Congress is always looking for new revenue streams to pay for things. And this could be a potentially huge revenue stream. So it was not included in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act last year. So that's great. But we're not done with budget bills. We're not done with comprehensive tax bills. So if there is a bill that comes forward in this year, then we just need to make sure that, if we can, that there aren't any changes to the way in which nonprofit entities are taxed.
Okay. So as I understand it, RIMS is serving on the steering committee of a broad-based association coalition led by
the American Society of Association Executives.
That's right. And
so, yes, we are on the steering committee of this coalition. The coalition is called the Community Impact Coalition. There are a substantial number of associations in the DC area that are involved. Again, we are on the steering committee, which means that we play a very active role in settling on our legislative strategy, our approach to dealing with this issue. So it's been great to be involved in working with this group. Again, I think we had a great deal of success last year in making sure that none of these new tax provisions were included in the budget reconciliation bill. And we just need to make sure, again, this year, for the last half of this session of Congress, that those tax provisions don't rear their ugly heads again.
And we love ASAE here at RIMS.
We love ASAE. Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. And you remember in 2023, this show won an NYSAE award for Marcom Excellence. That's right.
Remember.
Boom. I've got the award downstairs. And what we also want to hear about, of course, is National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP. Give us a status update if you don't mind.
Because how could you not want to hear about that?
Well, that's like 90% of the reason why you're on the show.
Well, I understand. I mean, if the NFIP doesn't float your boat, pardon the pun, I don't know what will. So the NFIP, the National Flood Insurance Program, is typically funded as part of the continuing resolution. The continuing resolution is a bill that funds the federal government in general. So that, unfortunately, is something that is considered by Congress every 3, 6, maybe 9 months. And we often reach a point where these issues regarding the continuing resolution are hashed out at the 11th hour. Sometimes they're not, and then the government experiences a partial shutdown, which at the time of recording we are currently in.
Right.
And then the NFIP doesn't have funding. So at the present moment, for example, the NFIP is not funded. So we essentially advocate for two things when we talk about NFIP reauthorization. The baseline thing that we argue for is funding, reauthorizing it, and if possible, reauthorizing it for a more extended period of time, say 2 years, 3 years. Beyond that, we've suggested some, and I won't go into great detail on these, enhancements from a commercial insurance buyer's perspective, but some enhancements that we'd like to see to the program. That is kind of a double-edged sword, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah, because right now, again, the continuing resolution is generally regarded as a must-pass piece of legislation. Now, it's not always passed, but it's generally regarded as must-pass legislation, which means you can, for the most part, reliably count on the NFIP to be funded. If you were to pull the NFIP out of this continuing resolution and have it considered as a separate piece of legislation, there's upside to it and downside. The upside is Congress is more likely to consider enhancements to the program from a commercial insurance buyer's perspective, and I think RIMS would really like that. But I think there's a big downside risk. And that downside risk is that it would no longer be considered a must-pass piece of legislation. And there are a lot of members of Congress, frankly, who don't think the government should be in the insurance business. So I think if this was not part of the continuing resolution, it might be, I think it's much more likely that the program would go away. So that's where we are with the NFIP.
So, Mark, we've got the Legislative Summit coming up, and could you do us a favor and just remind everyone who can attend the Legislative Summit? We're not relegated to just U.S. citizens, right?
We're not. It's RIMS members who work for companies that are doing business in the United States. Essentially, what we're looking for is RIMS members who represent companies that are essentially constituents of members of Congress, so that you can go in, talk to a member and say, hey, I'm here on behalf of RIMS, but I just also want you to know that I work for Corning, for example, and we have 2,000 employees in your district. And these are some risk management issues that Corning is facing right now. And I'd like to talk to you about those if I could.
We're going to take a quick break for a couple of plugs. The RIMS CRO Certificate Program in Advanced Enterprise Risk Management is our live virtual program led by the famous James Lamb. And folks, we have some great news for you. A brand new cohort has been announced. Registration closes April 6th and beginning April 14th. Workshops will be held bi-weekly from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern through June 23rd. Register now. A link is also on this episode's show notes. And folks, February is Insurance Careers Month, and that coincides nicely with the Spencer Educational Foundation's 7th annual Spencer Day, which will be February 23rd. Now, Spencer's CEO, Megan Miller, was recently on the show, and we were discussing how everyone can join in this virtual celebration. Spencer is seeking $47 donations in honor of its 47th year. The goal on Spencer Day is to raise $7,500 to support an additional scholarship, which will be awarded in the spring. A link to Spencer Day information is on this episode's show notes. Visit spencered.org/Spencer-Day. And now let's return to our interview with RIMS General Counsel and Vice President of External Affairs, Mark Prysock. So we got the NFIP, the CIC, TRIA, and TPLF. That's enough for an entire year's worth of advocacy, but you've got the Legislative Summit coming up. How are you going to address these issues at the summit while you're on Capitol Hill and during the educational sessions?
Sure. So the Legislative Summit, as you mentioned, will take place in Washington, D.C. on March 18th and 19th. March 18th is what we typically call our Education Day. It takes place at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce building, which is an absolutely beautiful, old, iconic building in D.C. And that's again, where our Education Day on March 18th will take place. And what we'll do essentially is have training on these various issues. So we'll have, a panel discussion around third-party litigation funding, a panel discussion around reauthorizing the National Flood Insurance Program, a panel discussion around association tax reform, and just bring a lot of different people from different parts of the DC community together to talk about that. And by that, I mean lobbyists like me, perhaps people from the administration side, congressional staffers. So people who are going to bring different perspectives, but hopefully provide our attendees with a fairly well-rounded understanding of each of these issues. After that, we'll have a sort of basic how to lobby members of Congress presentation, step through all the do's and don'ts. And then hopefully by that point, our folks will be ready to go. We'll have some leave behinds, which are one pagers that sort of outline our issue in depth, and then have a specific ask for the member of Congress. We'll make sure that those one pagers are transmitted to all the congressional offices we'll be visiting prior to our meetings, but we'll also have printed leave behinds for our members to take with them when they go to the Hill. And that's what Thursday, March 19th will be. It's a full day. I say it all the time. That's when we release the hounds, and everybody hits the Hill and talks to congressional staff members and maybe members of Congress about our legislative priorities.
Excellent. Did you have any highlights from last year, maybe about making contacts or times when you knew that the pitch was solid and that it resonated?
I do think the pitch was solid. We had one issue last year that was more of an association-specific issue rather than a risk management issue, and that was the Freedom to Invest in Tomorrow's Workforce Act. And what that legislation...
The 529s, right?
Exactly. So what that legislation did was essentially liberalize the use of 529 college savings account. Prior to passing this legislation, you were fairly limited in what you could use those 529 funds for. It was primarily 2 and 4 year college degrees. There were a lot of, I think, very persuasive arguments made by the association community that, well, maybe you should allow people to use those funds for things like credentials, certifications, things that might advance their careers in other ways that aren't necessarily as rigidly limited to 2 or 4 year college degrees. And there was very strong bipartisan support in the House and the Senate. I think that we participated in a very effective lobbying campaign on this. That was a big issue that we pushed last year at the Legislative Summit, and that legislation was ultimately passed into law using the exact language that our lobbying campaign recommended. So that for me was a high point from last year's Legislative Summit. Another high point for me was basically the attendance numbers. We had a high point with registrations. We had, I believe, right around 100 congressional visits in total. So I think RIMS was very well represented last year at the summit, and I'm hoping that we outdo ourselves this year.
Excellent. Let's take one final break, because what's an episode of RIMScast without plugging Risk World? Risk World 2026 will be held May 3rd through the 6th in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. As you know, Risk World attracts more than 10,000 risk professionals from across the globe. It's time to connect, cultivate, and collaborate with them. General registration is open, and you can lock in the advance rates through February 28th. Marketplace and hospitality badges will be available starting March 3rd. Links are on this episode's show notes, and be sure to check out rims.org for more information. And now let's conclude our interview with RIMS General Counsel and VP of External Affairs, Mark Prysock. So beyond the summit, in 2026, Mark, what is the RIMS Public Policy Committee gearing up for now that we are 1.5 months deep into the year?
I think the Public Policy Committee also wants to work very closely with the RISC-PAC trustees to raise awareness around a RISC-PAC and the important role that it plays in supporting our legislative program.
That's our Political Action Committee. That's what the RISC-PAC is.
It is our Political Action Committee. It is what is called a separate segregated fund. It's essentially a vehicle that we use to raise personal funds from our members, and then we use those dollars to support the re-election campaigns of members of Congress who we believe either already support our issues or are in a position to influence our issues in either the House or the Senate.
So these are allies in Congress or individuals that we hope will become allies or champion our causes.
That's correct. And so we have some fairly exciting new things happening with RISC-PAC this year. The first is a reception at Risk World. In the past, we've had our reception on Wednesday morning, very early, which I think, given the prior night's festivities, can be a difficult thing for people to attend, or at least to attend with any enthusiasm. Thanks to our events team, we are moving that to Sunday afternoon, just prior to the opening general reception.
So it's an opening ahead of the opening ceremony. It's a pre-opening.
Basically, we're going to pitch this as a little VIP party just prior to the opening reception.
I love it. And who can attend?
Anyone who is a member of RIMS and is a U.S. citizen can attend. Those are the individuals who can't support the PAC. So what we're going to do is essentially pitch this as a fundraising event for the PAC. We're going to have an open bar, wonderful past food, past hors d'oeuvres, and all we ask is that you make a contribution to the PAC in order to attend.
Excellent. Okay.
So that's one thing that we're doing for RISC-PAC this coming year. The second is we're trying to raise awareness for it at the regional conference level. So we're looking forward to having a fundraiser at the Florida RIMS conference in July.
Oh, sure. The educational conference. Yeah.
So that'll be part of the social agenda there.
Maybe Texas too?
Perhaps Texas as well. That's right. And we're hoping to have some time to proselytize about the wonders of RISC-PAC at the Western Regional Conference as well. So I'm looking forward to the PAC having more exposure at the regional conference level this year. So yeah, I think there'll be a lot of good things happening for the PAC this year, and hopefully we can raise a decent amount of money to again, support our legislative initiatives.
I think that's a great strategy, because if you put all your eggs in the risk world basket, it might not work out as effectively as it would be if you just lace them throughout the year, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a good move. And are there any emerging risks on RIMS's radar in addition to what you mentioned earlier? Anything on your mind?
I don't think there are any emerging risks at this point. I mean, the one that I guess, initially sort of struck me as an emerging risk, but really it's been sort of an ongoing one, is TRIA, which we already discussed. Mm-hmm. But that would be sort of the new, very relevant issue to the risk management community that I would describe it as emerging, but it's really just all about extending an existing program.
Gotcha. Now, as you know, Mark, last week on the show, we had RIMS's 70th president, Mr. Manny Padilla. He's our president for 2026. He was on the show. I met him initially at least 6 years ago because of his advocacy efforts. And I was wondering if he brings anything special to our efforts this year.
Manny is wonderful. I've known him for years. I think it is great for the public policy team, the public policy program, to have someone like Manny as president. And I say that because Manny has been a longtime supporter of the public policy program. He's been a member of the public policy committee. He's been a RISC-PAC trustee. He is a regular financial supporter of RISC-PAC. He is a regular attendee at the Legislative Summit. And I just think that he is a great person to be, out amongst, the RIMS community, talking up the importance of getting involved with our public policy efforts. So just having someone in the president's role who is as enthusiastic and supportive of our public policy program is great for us.
And I got to tell you, in the nearly 9 years that I've been here, he is one of the people who always stood out as someone who knows how to connect with someone. He can make a connection.
He does. And he has. I mean, he's been extremely useful in connecting us and the public policy committee, our public policy efforts with, others in sort of the greater DC community who are working on, similar issues.
I'm very confident that we're going to hear from you later on this year that some things were accomplished.
Oh, I believe you will. I'd be happy to join at any point, my friend.
Well, good, because I'm going to take you up on it, because every once in a while I run out of guests.
There you go.
And so, Mark, we're going to see you, like we said, March 18th and 19th. In the interim, though, because we've got about a month until the Legislative Summit happens, if anybody has any questions, they can visit rims.org/advocacy, and they can reach out to you directly, right?
Absolutely. Love to hear from anyone.
All right. Thank you, Mark. Always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, sir.
Special thanks, as always, to my friend Mark Prysock for joining us here on RIMScast and providing these very critical advocacy and legislative updates. Remember, the RIMS Legislative Summit will be held March 18th and 19th, as if you need to be told one more time in this episode. Register today at rims.org/advocacy. Information is available there about the RISC-PAC as well. We want you to get involved and take part in advocating for your profession. And now I want to speak about a topic near and dear to my heart, sponsorships. You can sponsor a RIMScast episode either on our publicly facing weekly show, that's this show, or with a dedicated episode. RIMScast has produced special episodes for JB Boda, The Hartford, Alliant, Zurich, Highwire, AXA XL, Prudent Insurance Brokers, High Trust, and Aon. Links to sponsored episodes are on our show notes. RIMScast has a global audience comprised of risk and insurance professionals, legal professionals, students, business leaders, C-suite executives, and more. Let's collaborate and help you reach them. Contact pd@rims.org for more information. Let's talk about RIMS membership, folks. Become a RIMS member and get access to the tools, thought leadership, and network you need to succeed. Visit rims.org/membership or email membershipdept@rims.org for more information. And let's also talk about Risk Knowledge. This is the RIMS searchable content library that provides relevant information for today's risk professionals. Available materials include RIMS executive reports, survey findings, contributed articles, industry research, benchmarking data, and more. For the best reporting on the profession of risk management, check out Risk Management Magazine, the Society's official monthly publication. You can find us on rmmagazine.com. It is written and published by the best minds in risk management. My name is Justin Smulison, Business Content Manager here at RIMS. Please remember to subscribe to RIMScast on your favorite podcasting app. Email us at content@rims.org. Practice good risk management, stay safe, and thank you again for your continuous support.